Hi, welcome beautiful Americans. How are you?
I lived with a man who was a liar, a thief, and a stalker. He took out loans behind my back to buy cars and TVs, then laughed in my face when I was grieving my father's death. I endured years of harassment, verbal abuse, and watching my own daughter cry, terrified of her father's rage. I played the victim, played the doormat. But then, he made a final massive mistake in public. He thought he was untouchable. He found out the hard way that when an arrogant pig is exposed, the law will always choose the kids. If you've ever had to fight to protect your children and your sanity from an abusive ex, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for a story that proves staying calm and letting the evidence speak for itself is the ultimate revenge. The lie of comfort. My name is Emma, and for years I lived in a comfortable lie with my ex-husband Mark. We both worked full-time, earned good salaries, and owned a nice apartment. We were doing fine, or so I thought. Our dynamic, however, was fundamentally broken from the start. Mark was obsessed with nice, expensive stuff. Cars, TVs, PlayStations, high-end clothing. I was not. I was a simple person. Our finances were one-sided. He had access to my bank account and my phone, so he always knew my salary and every dime I spent. I never had access to his. Suspect number one right there. We had a shared household budget, paying bills fluidly. But slowly I started paying more and more. I gave him money to cover his bills. When I asked him where our money was going, he became shady. My gut was screaming, but his belittling comments and emotional withdrawal made me question my own sanity. He convinced me that we could afford everything, making me feel like the irrational partner for questioning his spending. Conflict escalation, the betrayal and the cruelty. The truth finally emerged after our breakup. He was trying to win me back after moving out, desperate to regain control. That's when he confessed. He had taken out a huge loan behind my back, all to feed his shopping addiction. The cars, the clothes, they weren't paid for with our income. They were paid for with a debt I knew nothing about. This financial deception, coupled with his emotional manipulation and pressure for intimacy that often left me feeling belittled, finally pushed me over the edge. I had been brewing the thought of divorce for years, and now it was a certainty. The divorce was long and difficult. We made the mistake of continuing to live together for a time, simply because he insisted. When I finally called it off, he moved out. His wealthy parents stepped in, buying him a big, fully renovated apartment and covering all his living expenses to help him pay down his secret debt. I, meanwhile, sold our apartment alone, struggling to make ends meet in a small new place. I had just lost my father after a long struggle. The grief was a fresh, raw wound. When I tried to talk to Mark about money and child support, suggesting I keep the children's benefits since I was paying full rent and expenses while he paid virtually nothing, his cruelty was breathtaking. He actually laughed out loud and spat the words, "Too bad you don't have parents to pay your rent and help you out." My father had passed away only a month earlier. Mark knew exactly what my dad meant to me, and he laughed at my grief and my struggle. I was fuming, but I stayed silent, kept my cool. I vowed that he would never see me break. The darkest chapter, stalking and harassment. The divorce didn't end his control. It transformed it into stalking. While we still lived together, he hacked my phone, gaining access to WhatsApp, Messenger, DMs, everything. When I started dating immediately after he moved out, his rage became manic. He stalked my dating partners. He made fake gay dating profiles using one guy's picture and number. He threatened to go to another guy's house and beat him up, looking up their addresses. He harassed them with phone calls in the middle of the night. I was living in constant fear. Once, he came into my new home, the one he had moved away from, and violently tried to grab my phone, convinced he could still access it. That was scary. The final betrayal happened one night when I was at a party. He stalked me through mutual acquaintances' social media posts. He called me repeatedly, yelling and threatening to come to the party and beat up everyone there. I tried to talk to him calmly, reminding him he had our children with him. Didn't work. Had to hang up. Minutes later, my daughter called me, sobbing. "Why is Daddy so angry at you, Mom? Mom, please get out of there and go home before Dad does something stupid." That broke me. He had weaponized his rage, traumatizing our daughter and making her fear for my safety. I was furious, but I knew I had to remain the calm, rational parent. I took all his curses, the names, the threats, and buried the pain. The turning point, the public meltdown. I was a doormat. I stayed the bigger person, absorbing all the abuse. The slut-shaming, the baseless accusations, the attempts to manipulate custody, all to keep him minimally involved in the kids' lives. I went to counseling alone. He came once. I kept his raging tantrums in front of the kids from fracturing our custody agreement. But then, he gave me the perfect public moment of truth. It happened at the children's school event. He had a full-blown manic tantrum. He shouted, he cursed, he was red-faced and out of control. Other parents called CPS. Our kids were terrified. They cried and physically ran away from him. When we met with CPS, he wanted to fight for sole custody, still raging that I was ruining his life. I looked at the social worker and stated clearly, "This has to end. His rage against me is bigger than our children's well-being." This was my moment of clarity. I didn't need petty revenge. I needed legal, undeniable justice. The legal checkmate and the new antagonist. The legal process was my cold, precise revenge. I arranged an official custody meeting. He predictably backed down completely. He didn't want the 50-50 custody anymore. He only wanted every other weekend. I agreed. Then I went to court for child support. He hasn't paid a dime voluntarily. But thanks to the court order I pursued, the state takes money straight from his paycheck. It's only a fraction, but it's guaranteed. He can lie to everyone he meets, but he can't lie to the state's payroll department. The revenge was solidified by the emergence of his new supply. His fiancée. This woman, so Delulu, sent me a long, furious text. She accused me of being insane for asking for child support from the dad who struggles to pay our debts. She was mad that I make him pay, and that I had no consideration for his struggles. He co-pays her house loan as rent. She attacked my parenting, saying our kids weren't well raised because we let them eat snacks and didn't follow strict house rules. She called me a cold and crooked manipulator. I was done being the doormat. I replied, "Are you manipulated or just stupid?" I calmly laid out the truth. He took loans behind my back. He is unreliable with money. I don't make him pay. It's a judge's order. And finally, I do with my kids anything I want, and you have no say about it. I blocked her immediately. Full custody and financial freedom. The revenge wasn't a single dramatic event. It was the cumulative, legal annihilation of his control and his ego. Custody. I now have sole custody. His public tantrum was the evidence the court needed. He gave up 50-50 and now only has every other weekend. And he often skips those. Financial control. He is legally forced to pay child support, a fact his new fiancée publicly rails against. Humiliation. I showed his mother, with whom I have a great relationship, the texts from his fiancée, quietly exposing his continued lies and the toxic environment he chooses. I never flinched. I never screamed. I let his own arrogance, his own rages, and his own fiancée do the dirty work. I got my sanity back, I secured my children's safety, and the law handles the money. That arrogant pig is now legally bound to me and financially accountable to the state, while I thrive with my children. I have PTSD from those dark years, but I'm sane today. I learned that the best revenge isn't petty. It's institutional. Don't try to win the fight, win the court order. The law doesn't flinch, and it never loses its temper. If this story reminds you that the high road sometimes leads straight to the courtroom, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what's the one piece of evidence that finally won your court battle? And of course, subscribe to English Stories with Louisa for more stories of justice served cold and legally.